Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food systems storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
Today's program has been brought to you by Hearst Ranch, the nation's largest single-source supplier of free-range, all-natural, grass-fed, and grass-finished beef. For more information, visit HearstRanch.com. Broadcasting live from Bushwick, Brooklyn, you're listening to HeritageRadioNetwork.org.
Well, hello. This is Dorothy Cann Hamilton of the International Culinary Center, and we're here today on Chef's Story with the great chef Jonathan Beno. And I can't wait to start interviewing Jonathan. And one of my big questions in my mind about Jonathan is why he isn't a household name already. In our culinary world, in the professional world, he's one of the giants of chefs. And right now, he is the executive chef and really chef de cuisine. He's in there all the time, lunch and dinner. I see him because if you walk down 65th Street in New York, you can look up and see that fantastic kitchen of Lincoln at Lincoln Center. It's an extraordinary restaurant. I think it's one of the most beautiful restaurants in New York City. If you're coming to New York City, you have to go there. But more importantly, it was named the number one of the 10 best new restaurants in America by Alan Richman for GQ. And he also called it, if you know Alan, he's a curmudgeon. He's the most decorated food writer in America. But he called it America's most intelligent Italian restaurant. And it truly is. Now, where did Jonathan Beno come from? I mean, and to create the most intelligent Italian restaurant? Well, if you didn't know, he was the opening chef of Per Se for Thomas Keller from 2006, I think, and for 6 years. Or no, it was probably before that. And he was named a Rising Star Chef by StarChefs.com. And when he was at Per Se, he received a 4-star review from the New York Times on its opening. In 2005, he got the highest ranking new entry in London's restaurant magazine and 7th restaurant in the world. He got Best New Restaurant from the James Beard Award, 3-star Michelin ratings. I can go on. Jonathan Beno, the gentle giant of the food world. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Well, it's really great to finally get you here at Roberta's. I got him here with a pizza. So let's start. I mean, tell me, where did you grow up? And, what were your how did you enter into the food world here? What were your first food memories?
I grew up in Southbury, Connecticut, which is a small town right in the center of the state, in a series of the Barrys there along Interstate 84. And growing up, Southbury was, predominantly farms. I mean, the where my folks' house is at the time, growing up, was surrounded by farms. And early food memories, I was lucky enough to grow up at a time and in a family where, we sat down for dinner, every night at 5:30 when my dad got home from work, and the extended family, grandmothers, aunts and uncles would kind of come together on, Sundays for supper and holidays.
What kind of food?
American food.
Yeah. What was your favorite dish growing up?
My grandmother on my father's side was really the cook in the family. And she's Italian heritage, and so I remember her eggplant parmesan, her kind of version of chicken cacciatore. She was a tremendous baker, so her cakes and cookies and pies, those are my earliest food memories.
So I know you went to CIA. So what drew you to go to culinary school, and what was your vision for yourself at that time?
When I was in high school, I kind of fell into the restaurant business. I went to high school with one of my classmates. His brother owned, and I believe he and his wife still own, a little restaurant in Oxford, Connecticut called the Oxford House. And I was 15. I remember my mom had to drive me to work and pick me up because obviously I didn't have my driver's license
mom.
yet. And I started, a few nights a week washing dishes and peeling potatoes at the Oxford House restaurant in Oxford, Connecticut, and worked in restaurants through high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left high school. I knew I didn't want to go to college.
Were you working in the restaurant in high school for money, or because you liked being around food?
I liked money. There was a little of it to be had. But I also, at that age, 15, 16, 17, I liked being out of the house at night. And
honest answer.
Restaurant work was somewhat of a legitimate way to get out of the house.
Okay, so there wasn't this burning desire to be a chef.
It really had nothing to do with,
okay,
or very little to do with the passion for cooking. Right. It was getting out of the house and making a little bit of extra money, and at the time, hanging out with older guys and drinking beer, and
I love it.
I was corrupted early.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then, so when did you go to the CIA? How old were you?
Well, I left high school and with no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get out of Southbury, Connecticut, and so I moved out to Hawaii.
Oh.
And I took my first job out there was at the Hard Rock Cafe in Honolulu, and this was.
Wait, what made you from Connecticut choose Hawaii? That's the other side of the world.
Another friend who grew up out there, and said to me, why don't you come out for the summer and work, and you can stay at my mom's house. His mother still lives out there, and my friend's name is Brendan. His mom, Sheila Donnelly, was actually a very, very prominent public relations person for hotels and restaurants in the Pacific at the time, and one of her accounts was the Hard Rock Cafe, and so she got me a job there. I had I had a little bit of restaurant experience, and so I was 18 years old, and I was working at the Hard Rock Cafe in Honolulu, and that seemed
in the kitchen
pretty cool. Yeah,
you had a lot of fun. I can tell by the smile on your face. You had a lot of fun.
Maybe had a little too much fun.
So what brought you back from Honolulu?
Well, I lived there for about 2.5 years, and
did you surf?
You don't. Yeah, you don't pick up
The local.
Coming from Southbury, Connecticut to Honolulu, Hawaii, you don't pick up surfing at
Did you at least get a
at
tan?
18 or 19. I spent a lot of time at the beach.
Okay.
Watching people surf.
Okay.
And it was in Hawaii where I realized that I really wanted to pursue this as a career, that I wanted to become a chef. Like I started taking it more seriously, and I worked for about a year at the Hard Rock Cafe. I worked at a fine dining restaurant called the Black Orchid, and then I worked on the cruise ships for a while as well. And then this was right about the time, long story short, this was right about the time the Gulf War started, and travel came to a screeching halt. So I got laid off of the cruise ships, and I found myself in Hawaii with a duffel bag and a little bit of money in my pocket. I remember I called my father up and I said, listen, I'm thinking about moving back home. And he said, all right, when? I was like, well, I was going to go to the airport right now. So I'm moving back home right now. And then I came back to Connecticut, and that was when I got into the CIA, and I enrolled in the CIA.
That's great. So then, what was your journey like when you graduated?
I did my externship at the Greenbrier Resort in
nice.
West Virginia, and through that job, I got a job when I went back to school at the Mayflower Inn in Washington, Connecticut, working for a chef named John Farnsworth, and he was really the first mentor, I guess. And when I finished school, I was still working at the Mayflower Inn, and he said to me, you grew up here, like it's time to go, like you got to go, pick somewhere, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, like just go somewhere and work, and San Francisco.
So the fine dining really came in after at the CIA, at the Greenbrier. Wait, what was your mindset when you were at the CIA? Did you say, I want to go out there and be the best chef in the world? What was a young student's mind like that then?
I wanted to, and I still do, I wanted to learn as much as I could at that time, and I still feel that. I still feel that way today. I didn't have a clear. I didn't really choose my path. In other words, I didn't have in my mind that I wanted to go to New York City and work for Daniel Boulud at Le Cirque.
I see.
Because I remember New York was certainly an option, but I was really scared of New York. Like for some reason, moving out to San Francisco with no place to live and no job seemed more, seemed easier than moving to big bad New York. And I don't know why that. I don't know why, but that was my decision, to move to San Francisco with no job and no place to live. And
you did that.
I did that, and I was, I found a place to live very easily, and I was lucky enough to kind of walk in the back door of Aqua Restaurant, and Michael Mina hired me on the spot.
Wow. Was that because of your education, your breeding at Mayflower?
It had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with an hour before, I think he had thrown the Garmager guy out of the restaurant and needed someone to make salads that night.
Okay, so now what was it like working at Aqua, and was it different from the Mayflower or from the East Coast, West Coast cooking?
People always say that Aqua was like a New York restaurant in San Francisco, and it was really, Aqua was like the first really kind of big, high profile, busy, really, really hard place to work. I remember that being one of the hardest jobs I ever had in my career.
Really?
Because at that time, Aqua was probably one of the one of the hottest
Restaurants
in the country, and it was packed every day for lunch and for dinner, and it was a small kitchen doing very, very ambitious food, and it was really, really busy, really, really intense.
How long did you stay?
I was there for about a year and a half.
And you got out of Garde Manger, I take it. And
Yeah,
that's like the appetizer prep station if you're listening out there.
I was lucky enough to kind of work my way the hard way around the different stations in the kitchen. And there was a sous chef there, a guy named Mark LaRusso, who had worked for Thomas Keller at Checkers in Los Angeles. And about a year and a half into Aqua, Mark, I became friends with Mark, and he really he took good care of me there. And he said to me, like, listen, you're really, like, you've worked all the stations. Like, it's time for you to go find another job. And he said, I think you should go up and trail with a chef that I used to work for in Los Angeles, Thomas Keller, who's opening a restaurant in Napa Valley. And I think it's going to be pretty special. I think I remember Mark saying, like, I think you'll really get along with Thomas. And so I had a motorcycle at the time, and I remember driving my motorcycle up there and trailing for a day. And the chef said, "Thank you very much. We're just getting started. I'll be sure to call you when we need somebody." And it was, a few weeks went by, and the chef called Mark and said, "Listen, I'm ready. I can take John now. Like, when can you let him go?" And I finished up at Aqua, and I moved up to Napa, and I started as a commis.
How long had French Laundry been open by that time?
It had been open probably for about 6 months when I got there.
Wow. Okay, well, we're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, we're going to get on that chapter of your life's journey. Thanks, Jonathan.
Ranch grass-fed beef, pasture raised on 150,000 acres in Central California. Hearst Ranch grass-fed beef, free range, sustainably produced, humane. Hearst Ranch grass-fed beef, the authentic flavor of the American West.
Well, welcome back. This is Chef's Story with Dorothy Cann Hamilton, and today my guest is Jonathan Beno, the executive chef of Lincoln at Lincoln Center in New York City. And we're just tiptoeing through his life here, and we just finished by saying he took a job at the newly opened French Laundry in Napa Valley in Yountville. And Jonathan, welcome back. And so tell me, what was it like in the first 6 months of the French Laundry up in Napa Valley?
When you look at the kitchenette per se today, you look at the kitchen at the French Laundry, Bouchon, all the remarkable things that the chef has done in the course of the past 20 years. The French Laundry, and it reminds me, Roberta's kind of reminds me a little bit of where we started at the French Laundry. Really? And I have a bunch of old photographs of the the French Laundry from 20 years ago kind of stuck into my first copy of the French Laundry cookbook. And the very first, the original kitchen at the French Laundry was where the salon or reception area of the restaurant is today. And it was literally a wooden table in the center of a small room with 2 stoves. And the chef and Ron Siegel, the chef was the meat cook, Ron was the fish cook. There was one person on the garde manger, and there was one person in the pastry. And I worked in the morning doing prep with another guy, actually Amy Sherber's brother.
Really?
John and I. And the chef would he'd start, pointing at the clock at 4:45.
Now, the chef we're talking about is Thomas Keller.
Right.
And I think it's really great that you refer to him as the chef.
He's been the chef for 20 years. He'll always be the chef. He would chase us out of there. He'd make us clean and chase us out of there at 5 o'clock. We'd have to finish prep on the, outside the restaurant because guests were coming and service was beginning at 5:30.
And they needed the space.
They needed the space because that wooden prep table became, the pass during the service.
That's so you were working really hand to hand with Thomas Keller and the other chefs there. What was the food like in the very beginning?
It was if you look at the French Laundry cookbook, that really was from day one. That was the food. The menu was much. I always joke with the chef that when he hired me, he started the tasting menu at the French Laundry, and that had nothing to do with my culinary ability at the time, but it had everything to do with having an extra set of hands to prep during the day to do the mise en place necessary to do the tasting menu. Was
the restaurant immediately successful, or did some nights you sit there twiddling your thumbs, praying they would come?
I think that hard time was in the very, very beginning. By the time I got there, the restaurant was full most evenings,
and it had already started with its reputation. So you didn't stay there. Let's get, because you're going to circle back with the Thomas Keller Group. How long were you there, and then where did you go?
I worked there for about a year, and during that year, the chef built an addition to the restaurant, which is where the kitchen is today. Mm-hmm. So we went from this tiny little kitchen to a larger kitchen that enabled him to do lunch at the French Laundry as well. And then I started getting restless in Napa, and the chef was able to get me a job with Daniel Boulou at the original Danielle, where Café Boulou is today.
Mm-hmm. Oh, back then. And who was the chef? Was it Andrew was there?
No. That was a pretty remarkable. That was a pretty stellar team. It was like the Yankees, because it was Chef Danielle was at the Pass every day for lunch and dinner, and then it was Alex Lee.
Oh, Alex Lee.
Right. Riyad Nasser.
Oh, Riyad Balthazar.
Lee Hansen.
Lee Hansen, Balthazar,
and Philippe Bertrand.
Oh my!
So there was those 5 guys at the Pass, and you talked about the segment that you did with Michael Anthony earlier. Yeah. Michael cooked fish.
Oh no!
At lunch, and I stood right behind him on the garde manger station.
Oh my God! I always told Danielle he ran the graduate school, the Harvard Business School of cooking. And
there are a lot of
alums,
really, really talented people that came out of that kitchen.
Really? So, and then where did you go?
Then I went to work for Christian Delouvier at the Les Celebrités in the Essex House Hotel.
He's a brilliant chef.
Yeah, that was a great time. Mm-hmm. Really, really small kitchen. Obviously,
very French.
Very
French.
Très française. It was, it's a small little luxury jewel box in a hotel.
Now, did Danielle tell you to go there and arrange that for you? No. Can I ask about?
He told me not to go there.
Oh, really? So why did you?
For a lot of different reasons.
I mean, Christian had an amazing reputation and delicious food.
Yeah, and it was a special plate. Like those luxury restaurants and hotels, they don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the ingredients that he was bringing in, and it was a special little place.
Okay, so then where did you go from?
And then
there?
I went to go work for Tom Colicchio at Gramercy Tavern.
Oh my gosh, this is like, so, and Gramercy Tavern, and it was based, in those days, was as product sensitive or technique sensitive? Because Tom, I think, more in terms of technique, and Michael Anthony, now the chef there, I think has the technique, but is very product sensitive too.
Yeah, but it was both 15 years ago. I mean, Modesto Batista, who's still the head steward, doesn't do his role justice. But he, 15 years ago, he was rolling the carts down to the green market and coming back with produce. 15 years ago, whole rabbits and lambs and, rack of veal were coming in the back door at Gramercy Tavern.
Wait a minute. So this is sounding to me like living in London, being a musician with Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and it's just the hottest people on earth. And it sounds, being in New York with all of these colleagues and cooks. What did it feel like? Did you go out drinking afterwards? What did you talk about? Did you?
Never. There were never out drinking. There were never drugs. It was just 100%. I'm kidding. Focused on cuisine. No, it was really,
Did you know these guys were going to be incredible, like yourself?
I knew they were incredible at the time, and could only believe that, that they were going to go out and do, remarkable things.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little side note on the drugs and the drinking. When Tony Bourdain's book came out, Kitchen Confidential, and it looked like, just one free rock and roll ride the whole time, Jacques Pepin said to me, "Are you kidding?" He said, yes, people do that, but they don't survive. Cooking is such a hard physical day in, day out work that you can only do that when you're very young.
Yeah,
and if you want to survive in this industry, you got to straighten out pretty soon.
You can get away with it for a little while when you're younger, but you're right. You can't sustain that lifestyle and manage
a brilliant career.
Not just your personal life, but your career.
Career, yeah. So so now Gramercy Tavern. How long were you there? What was your position?
I worked there for about 2.5 years. I was lucky enough to kind of move through the stations in the kitchen, and I was really lucky to spend a year with Claudia Fleming in the pastry kitchen.
Pastry. I love her. I love her desserts. Yeah. And
still, that would really, not that, I worked service for, I was able to do production for a little while, but I worked service for most of the time. But for a chef to have that experience and just kind of a fundamental, basic knowledge of pastry production and service. I'm so glad that I had that opportunity. And most importantly, that opportunity to work pastry a year with Claudia.
Absolutely. So, but after that, you went to Kraft as sous chef, and then you made full circle back to French Laundry.
Yeah, I was a sous chef at Kraft with working for Tom and Marco. David Chang was a reservationist there at the time.
No, really?
Yeah, that was how he got his foot in the door. Marco said no, so many times, and David, being as stubborn as he is, wouldn't take no for an answer. So he was either going to FCI at the time or had just finished FCI, and took a part-time job as a reservationist just to get his foot in the door. Prove Marco wrong, and then he found his way into the kitchen, and
fantastic.
The rest is history.
Is history. So, let's get back to how you got back to the French Laundry, because you eventually became the opening chef of Per Se. And one of the quotes from Thomas Keller that I just find spectacular is, and this is Thomas speaking, "Whenever I look at one of Jonathan's dishes at Per Se, I immediately feel a connection to it, even if I didn't create it. I see a lot of myself in him, actually. That drive, that ambition, that quality of workmanship, and his modesty. I think modesty is so important." I think if any of our listeners out there, you're listening to this, Jonathan just keeps deflecting, all the greatness, but he is the gentle giant of a chef here. What was it like? Why did you go back to the French Laundry? And what was it like? And how did you become the opening chef of Per Se? And we're going to have to break in a couple of minutes. So why don't you just tell us how you got back to the French Laundry? And when we come back, we'll see what your defining vision was for Per Se.
There was an article in the New York Times announcing the project at Time Warner, and I remember there was a photograph of Jean-Georges and the chef in hard hats looking at Columbus Circle. And as soon as I remember seeing the article, and I called the chef and I said, "Listen, I would really like the opportunity to work with you again if
you come back to New York.
When the restaurant in New York opens." And he said, "Thank you. Let's talk about it some more." And we talked about it some more for about, 6 months, probably 6 months to a year. And then, he invited me back to work at the French Laundry, to prove myself, to see if I was the right candidate to open Per Se.
So what was your position at the French Laundry when you went back?
Butcher, baker, candlestick maker. I did a little bit of everything for the first year, and then kind of assumed the role of a sous chef. Like I was doing the fish order. I was expediting the lunch service
as sous chef. Thomas was the chef.
Thomas was the chef. Eric Ziebold, chef de cuisine.
Okay, and then you as sous chef.
Gregory Short, myself, and Mark Hopper. That was the team. Mm-hmm. Sebastian Ruxell, the pastry chef.
Mm. Great. Okay, well, we're going to take a break here. We're going to come back and talk about Per Se.
HeritageRadioNetwork.org is the most trusted media outlet for real, quality conversations about food. That experience will come to life at our first annual members-only fundraiser party on September 9th from 5 to 8 p.m. at Roberta's Pizza in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Enjoy the best food in the world, from talent including Michael Anthony, award-winning chef from Gramercy Tavern, Brooks Headley, award-winning pastry chef from Del Posto, Shauna Pacifico at Back 40 West, sustainable seafood from Sea to Table, and much more, including drinks made by Dave Arnold, host of Cooking Issues, craft beer from Greenpoint Harbor Brewery, wine from Cane Vineyard and Winery in the Napa Valley, and plenty more. Radio is back, and this will be a special, exclusive experience in the back garden of Roberta's that you don't want to miss. September 9th, 5 to 8 p.m. Buy tickets at heritageradionetwork.eventbrite.com.
Well, welcome back. This is Dorothy Cann Hamilton, and you're listening to Chef's Story. And today, my guest is Jonathan Beno, the executive chef of Lincoln Restaurant at Lincoln Center in New York City. And we're talking about his journey there. And are just getting back to when he has become the opening chef of Per Se in New York City. So, Jonathan, tell us. So you spent your years at the French Laundry, and Chef Thomas Keller thought, okay, you could do it. How did he come to you? What were your thoughts going through your mind? And what was your vision for Per Se?
We, the team that opened that restaurant, Per Se, I guess the goal was, and I believe the goal still is today, to bring that level of, product-driven refinement that is so special about the French Laundry to New York.
So it's different from the French Laundry.
Well, it's different in that, the French Laundry is a beautiful little farmhouse, amidst the vineyards of Napa Valley. I mean, Per Se is this massive restaurant in, the Time Warner Center, that looks out over Central Park.
So when Food and Wine named you Best New Chef in 2006, the quote was, because he prepares clever, indulgent food that complements his boss, Thomas Keller's, but is completely his own. So tell me, how did you collaborate with, did Chef just let you create your dishes? Did you have to take him in mind? You were the head of the kitchen. You were there day to day. He wasn't.
I was the head of the kitchen. I was the chef de cuisine at Per Se for 6 years. And I was surrounded by really, really talented people. And, any team, it's not just about Tom Brady, it's about the Patriots, right? It's about the coach, Bill Belichick. So, I'm a big Patriots fan, so I had to get that. I had to get that in there. So I had, my coach, I had Thomas Keller. I was the chef de cuisine. But I also had, guys like Corey Lee in the beginning to help, drive this thing.
Oh, who made the menu?
We did.
As a team.
As a team.
But you were the leader. So
then,
if there was a play you didn't like, you struck it out. And if there was a play you thought you should play. So where did you come down? Because it was your cuisine. And you're doing your cuisine at Lincoln, a very different restaurant. But where did it start forming? When did you feel your comfort level?
I think when we got through the review process and things kind of settled and the restaurant started to run, an aspect of Per Se that a lot of people really don't know about is that restaurant also has, private dining room for 75. Mm-hmm. So, we ran the 15 table dining room up front, but we also had this private dining room for 75 that, was very, very busy. So it was that restaurant is a monster. It's really big and busy, and there's a lot happening. There's even more happening there today with, Bouchon Bakery.
Oh, that's
on
right.
the floor below.
Mm-hmm. And they have that cafe outside. Okay, so when did Jonathan Beno's cuisine? Because let's get on to Lincoln, because I want to get into your cuisine. Lincoln is a very extraordinary. What did Alan Richman mean by intelligent Italian food? Tell me what your cuisine is today.
He was being very, very generous.
Yeah.
We the goal, I think, at Lincoln is to take a very traditional cuisine, and that is Italian cuisine, and bring it to, a very, very modern, very dynamic setting at, Lincoln Center. There's a lot going on. Just that restaurant is in a very, very unique location in that, this is the first time that I've ever worked at a restaurant that did, a full turn, quote, pre-theater, before 7:30. A normal, in my mind, like a normal service between 7:30 and 10 o'clock. And then, on a lot of nights, like a post-theater seating crowd.
So tell me about one dish at the restaurant now that reflects you. Or that you love. I'm sure you love them all.
Yeah, I like all the dishes. So we started, there's two really. And one of them is we do we didn't serve a lot of pasta at the French Laundry and per se, but one kind of signature pasta that the chef has always done is agnolotti from Piedmont. The chef was there and spent some time in kitchens there a while back and has always done agnolotti. So, like, nostalgia, like that pasta shape has great significance for me. And the general manager of the restaurant, Paolo Novello, is from Piedmont, so there's a connection there. And I've been lucky enough to go to Piedmont a couple of times with him. So we do a corn agnolotti, which is a variation on a corn agnolotti that we did at the French Laundry in Per Se with summer truffles and stracciatella that we make at the restaurant. So that's a great a dish that I'm very, very proud of. And obviously you put corn, summer truffles, and stracciatella together, very, very popular at the restaurant. And another dish that we're actually going to start doing again, we just started doing a regional, choosing a region of Italy and doing 3 or 4 dishes from that region, and it's kind of in a separate area of the rest of the menu. And we're doing Calabria now, so we have 4 dishes from Calabria, and one of them is kind of a grilled piece of swordfish that's stewed in tomatoes with capers and olives. So we buy in the loin of swordfish, and we kind of take the belly off of the swordfish, and then we brine it, and then we kind of rub it with like a pretty traditional pastrami rub, juniper, coriander, black pepper, and we're actually going to start serving it tonight with pickled green tomatoes and purslane and a bunch of summery green market things. So, that's one. Really proud of the regional dishes, and then taking, being a smart cook, a smart chef, taking a lesser cut of something like the swordfish belly, and then coming up with something really special to do with that.
Right. So, did you, when you went to Lincoln, did they say to you, the Patina group you're working with now, did they say what kind of cuisine? Because with the word Lincoln, it could be anything. I mean, you don't put Italian food, and it's basically an Italian it's an Italian menu. Did you always want to do an Italian menu? You didn't work. You worked at all these French restaurants. How did Italian come about? And has this been something you've always wanted to do?
Probably about 4 or 5 years into Per Se, I started thinking about what's next, or what could possibly be next. And I've always been really passionate about Italian food. My wife has worked for Joe and Mario on and off for over
Mario Batali,
over 10 years.
Babbo, and all of this.
She opened Babbo then came to work with us at Kraft. That's where we met. She, just recently left Italy. So
to be the mother of your two children.
We have for a really hard job
Yes,
to be the mother of our two daughters. And we always joke that she's a better Italian cook than I am because of her her background. I've always loved Italian cuisine. I've always loved going to Italy. The people, the different places that I've been.
So when you made the leap from Per Se to Lincoln, was it because you could do Italian food, or what? It was time to go out on your own. What
I felt it was time. Although there are times when I miss. I did an event a while back with Missy Robbins, and we were talking, and she left Spiaggia to come to New York, and she really said it best. She said, there are times when I really miss having a mentor, and I feel the same way at times. There are times when I really miss having Thomas Keller, standing behind me, or having or picking up the phone and touching base with him as we would often do when I was at Per Se. I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew that I would be measured by Per Se, and I really wanted to do Italian, to focus on Italian food.
To be, the best new Italian restaurant in the country by Alan Richman, and intelligent Italian food. You are making your mark, and you're making, you talk so modestly about, your swordfish, but it is so different. Your agnolotti is so light. It's like putting pillows in your mouth. I mean, the execution is extraordinary. And you sit here like, oh, well, it's, just the next step. I think this foment around you of greatness, and it's so, it comes across so gently. I don't want our listeners out there to mistake that for there's this incredible passionate cuisine coming out of your hands and your taste. And I think everyone, if you haven't been to Lincoln, you really have to get there. So we're going to have to end pretty soon, but I have to ask you, are you going to just stay in Italian cuisine? I mean, you have so much ability. I'm not talking about, now he's not leaving Lincoln or anything like that, but in the future, 5-10 years from now, is there something in the back of your mind saying, one day I will?
One day I will. Being a chef, being a cook, is an evolution. And, I remember working at the Oxford House restaurant in Connecticut, washing dishes and watching the two chefs cook, and I was amazed at how many different things they would touch during the course of a day, and how many different things that they would do. And I still feel that way today. There's a lot that I still feel like there's a lot I have to learn, and there's a lot of things that I still want to do, and there's just not enough time in the day.
So if I could say, Jonathan, I'm going to babysit the kids, you take your wife Elizabeth, and I will put you down anywhere for a meal tonight, anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Well, I'll definitely take you up on the offer to babysit, but you were able to lure me out to Bushwick with the promise of spending part of the afternoon with you, but also
eating a pizza,
the opportunity to eat at Roberta's, which I'm embarrassed to say I haven't done so yet. So I'm sorry that my wife isn't here, and I may catch hell for coming here without her. But I'm glad that we were able to do this, and I'm glad that I was able to to get a lunch at Roberta's.
I don't want to end this on this note, but you are a cheap date if this is the only place I have. And I would say it's a world-class restaurant. Well, let me say once again, Jonathan Beno is a gentle giant of a chef in our profession, and Lincoln is one of the great new restaurants in New York City. If you haven't been there, you have to get there and eat this really delicious, very, very unique Italian food. And I want to thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
And let's go eat the pizza. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to this program on heritageradionetwork.org. You can find all of our archived programs on our website or as podcasts in the iTunes Store by searching Heritage Radio Network. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at heritage_radio. You can email us questions at any time at info@heritageradionetwork.org. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization. To donate and become a member, visit our website today. Thanks for listening.
Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butz, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.